Iran has claimed responsibility for a large-scale strike targeting what it describes as one of Israel's most important weapons manufacturing facilities, an attack that has quickly drawn global attention and raised serious security concerns. According to Iranian sources, the strike was designed to cause maximum destruction inside the complex, with the goal of damaging production capacity and disrupting operations across multiple sections of the site at the same time. Early regional monitoring reports suggest the targeted location is believed to be a central hub in Israel's defense manufacturing network, making it a critical part of the country's military supply infrastructure. Iranian media statements describe the operation as a carefully planned strike aimed not at a single structure, but at the broader industrial compound, with the intention of affecting several operational areas simultaneously. Initial reports circulating through regional channels indicate that multiple explosions were observed shortly after the impact, with fire spreading across different sections of the facility within minutes. Sources monitoring emergency response activity say firefighting units and rescue teams were deployed quickly, but the scale of the explosions reportedly made early containment efforts difficult. Analysts following the situation say large industrial complexes like this often contain interconnected systems, meaning damage in one area can trigger failures in other parts of the facility. Iranian claims emphasize that the objective was to disable production capabilities rather than strike symbolic targets, suggesting the attack was focused on long-term operational impact. The facility believed to have been hit is widely regarded by defense observers as a key location involved in the manufacturing of advanced military equipment used across multiple branches of Israel's security forces. Because of the importance of such sites, even limited structural damage can have major consequences, especially if critical machinery, power systems, or storage areas are affected. According to sources tracking developments, the strike may have caused secondary explosions inside the complex, possibly linked to stored materials or ongoing production processes at the time of impact. Secondary blasts in industrial environments can significantly increase the overall level of destruction, making damage assessments more complicated and slowing emergency response efforts. Regional monitoring channels reported that flames were visible across large portions of the site shortly after the strike, suggesting the impact may have reached several operational zones. Emergency services reportedly worked for hours to secure the area, extinguish fires, and evaluate potential hazards before technical teams could begin detailed inspections. Authorities are believed to have established restricted zones around the facility as a precaution, limiting access while investigators attempt to determine the full extent of the damage. Security forces were also deployed in large numbers, reflecting the sensitivity of the location and the importance of controlling information during the early stages of the incident. Analysts say incidents involving major defense facilities often lead to immediate security reviews across other strategic locations, especially when the strike appears highly effective. Iranian statements describe the attack as a direct response within the ongoing regional tensions, framing the strike as part of a broader conflict rather than an isolated event. As details began to emerge, governments and defense observers around the world started closely monitoring the situation, looking for signs of escalation or further retaliation. One of the key questions raised by the reported strike is how much of the facility's production capacity may have been affected, and how long it could take to restore operations. Large weapons manufacturing sites often rely on specialized equipment that cannot be replaced quickly, meaning even limited damage can disrupt output for weeks or months. In addition to physical destruction, damage to internal systems such as power supply, communications networks, or automated production lines can slow recovery even further. Sources familiar with industrial infrastructure say that the loss of a single critical section can force the entire facility to shut down until repairs are completed. Early assessments from regional monitoring networks suggested the damage footprint extended across a wide area, indicating the strike may not have been limited to a single point of impact. This has led some analysts to consider the possibility of a coordinated strike pattern or the use of a high-power weapon designed to maximize structural damage. Iranian media reports highlighted what they described as extensive destruction across multiple sections of the complex, although independent confirmation of the full extent remains limited. Investigators are expected to analyze debris patterns, structural damage, and impact locations to better understand the nature of the strike and how it was carried out. Such technical assessments can take time, especially in large industrial environments where fires, debris, and hazardous materials may still pose risks to inspection teams. Until detailed reports are released, much of the information available comes from regional monitoring sources, official statements, and early observations from the scene. What is clear so far is that the reported strike has become one of the most closely watched incidents involving industrial military infrastructure in recent months. As more information began to surface, analysts focused on the strategic importance of the targeted facility, noting that sites involved in weapons production are often considered among the most sensitive parts of any defense network. Facilities like this typically handle multiple stages of manufacturing, from raw material processing to final assembly, meaning damage in one area can interrupt the entire chain of production. According to defense observers, the loss of even a single production line can slow delivery schedules, affect maintenance programs, and create delays across several military systems at once. Iranian claims describe the strike as intended to create widespread disruption rather than a temporary setback, suggesting the goal was to affect long-term operational capability instead of causing limited damage. Regional monitoring sources reported that emergency response teams remained at the site for hours, working to control fires and secure areas where additional explosions could still occur. Large industrial complexes often store fuel, chemicals, or specialized materials, and when these are exposed to extreme heat or impact, they can trigger chain reactions that make the situation more dangerous. Because of these risks, investigators must move carefully during the first phase of assessment, checking structural stability before allowing full inspection of the damaged areas. Security forces were reportedly seen establishing multiple checkpoints around the complex, a move analysts say is common when incidents involve facilities connected to national defense. Restricting access helps prevent the spread of sensitive information while also allowing authorities to evaluate damage without interference from outside observers. At the same time, monitoring groups across the region began tracking activity at other strategic sites, watching for signs that additional strikes or defensive measures could follow. When a major facility is hit, governments often increase security at similar locations, especially those linked to production, storage, or research connected to military technology. Sources following regional reactions say heightened alert levels have been reported at several sensitive locations, although officials have not released detailed statements about specific measures. The uncertainty surrounding the full extent of the damage has also made it difficult to estimate how long the affected facility could remain partially or completely out of operation. Repairing industrial infrastructure can take far longer than repairing ordinary buildings, especially when specialized machinery must be rebuilt, replaced, or recalibrated. Some equipment used in weapons manufacturing is custom-built, meaning replacement parts may take months to produce, ship, and install even under normal conditions. If power systems, internal networks, or automated production controls were damaged, restoring full functionality could require extensive technical work before operations can safely resume. Analysts say that even if the outer structure of a facility remains standing, internal damage can still force production to stop until every system is tested and confirmed to be safe. Iranian statements have continued to emphasize that the strike was aimed at critical infrastructure rather than symbolic targets, suggesting a focus on measurable operational impact. This type of targeting reflects a strategy designed to weaken capability over time, rather than create immediate visible effects that disappear quickly. According to monitoring sources, the reported destruction has already led to discussions among defense analysts about how vulnerable large centralized facilities may be during periods of heightened tension. Concentrating production in a single location can improve efficiency, but it also means a successful strike has the potential to affect a large portion of output at once. Because of this, some countries distribute manufacturing across multiple sites, reducing the risk that one incident could interrupt the entire supply chain. Whether the targeted facility had such redundancy in place remains unclear, and investigators are expected to examine how operations were structured before the strike. Early reports suggest that several sections of the complex may have been operating simultaneously at the time of impact, which could explain the scale of the reported explosions. When active production lines are hit, stored materials and equipment can contribute to additional blasts, increasing both the damage and the time required for recovery. Emergency crews reportedly focused first on stabilizing the situation, putting out fires and securing damaged structures before beginning the process of detailed evaluation. Authorities are also believed to be reviewing security footage, sensor data, and monitoring records to determine exactly how the strike occurred and which areas were affected first. Understanding the sequence of events is critical for both damage assessment and future prevention, especially when the target involves highly sensitive industrial operations. As investigators continue continue their work. Officials have released limited confirmed details, leaving much of the current information based on regional monitoring reports and official claims. Even with incomplete data, the reported scale of the strike has already made it one of the most closely watched developments involving defense infrastructure in recent weeks. As investigations continued, analysts began looking beyond the physical damage to consider the wider strategic impact that a strike on a major weapons facility could have on military readiness over time. Weapons production sites are not only used for building new equipment, but also for repairing, upgrading, and maintaining existing systems, making them essential for keeping operations running smoothly. When one of these facilities is disrupted, the effects can spread through supply chains, delaying deliveries and forcing adjustments in planning across multiple parts of the defense structure. Sources familiar with industrial defense networks say even short interruptions can create scheduling problems, especially when production lines are already working at high capacity. Iranian media descriptions suggested the strike was intended to slow output rather than destroy everything completely, a strategy aimed at creating longer-term pressure instead of a single dramatic result. This type of approach can make recovery more complicated, because the facility may still be standing while key systems inside remain damaged or unsafe to operate. Regional monitoring groups reported that technical teams were seen arriving at the site after emergency crews secured the area, indicating the start of detailed structural and mechanical inspections. These inspections are necessary to determine whether buildings can be repaired or if entire sections will need to be rebuilt, a process that can take weeks just to evaluate. Large industrial complexes often rely on precise alignment of machinery, meaning even small structural shifts caused by explosions can require major repairs before production can restart. Engineers must also check electrical systems, ventilation, storage units, and safety controls, all of which are critical for facilities that handle complex manufacturing processes. If any of these systems are compromised, the risk of accidents increases, forcing operators to delay reopening until every part of the environment meets strict safety standards. Analysts say this is why strikes on industrial targets can have effects that last much longer than attacks on ordinary buildings, even when the visible damage looks limited. Iranian statements continued to highlight what they described as extensive disruption, claiming the strike affected multiple operational areas rather than a single production hall. While independent confirmation remains limited, monitoring sources noted that smoke and fire were reported in several different sections of the complex shortly after the impact. Multiple impact points, if confirmed, would suggest a strike designed to cover a wider area, increasing the chances of disabling critical equipment across the facility. Some observers have pointed out that modern industrial sites often depend on centralized control systems, meaning damage to one control center can affect many production lines at once. If internal networks or automation systems were hit, restoring operations could require both physical repairs and software reconfiguration, further extending recovery time. In addition to the technical challenges, authorities must also review security procedures to understand how the strike was able to reach such a sensitive location. Security reviews typically examine detection systems, response times, and defensive measures to identify any gaps that may have allowed the attack to succeed. These reviews can lead to changes not only at the damaged facility, but also at other sites considered important to national defense or industrial production. Monitoring sources reported increased activity around several sensitive locations following the incident, although officials have not confirmed the exact nature of the precautions. When tensions are high, even a single strike can lead to broader adjustments in security planning, as authorities try to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Analysts say this type of reaction is common when infrastructure linked to weapons production becomes a target, because such facilities are often seen as high-value objectives. The reported destruction has also raised questions about how vulnerable large industrial complexes may be when they operate in fixed, easily identifiable locations. Unlike mobile systems, factories cannot be moved, which means protecting them depends entirely on defensive measures, early warning systems, and rapid response capability. Some experts argue that spreading production across multiple smaller sites can reduce risk, but doing so also increases cost and complexity, making it a difficult balance. Whether the targeted facility had backup production capacity elsewhere is not yet clear. and investigators are expected to examine how operations were distributed. In the meantime, the focus remains on assessing the actual damage, a process that can take time when the affected area includes heavy machinery, hazardous materials, and unstable structures. Emergency crews are believed to still be working inside parts of the complex, clearing debris and checking for hidden fires that could reignite after the initial explosions. Until those efforts are complete, officials are unlikely to release full details, leaving analysts and observers relying on partial reports while waiting for confirmed information. As the situation develops, analysts say the true impact of the strike may not be fully understood for days, because large industrial facilities require careful inspection before officials can confirm how much damage was actually done. Damage assessments in these environments often move slowly, since investigators must check structural stability, electrical systems, and safety controls before allowing full access to production areas. Even after fires are extinguished, hidden risks such as weakened supports, damaged wiring, or unstable equipment can delay recovery efforts and keep sections of the site closed. According to monitoring sources, technical teams are believed to be evaluating which parts of the facility can be repaired and which may require complete reconstruction. Rebuilding specialized industrial infrastructure is rarely quick, especially when the equipment involved is custom designed for specific production tasks. Some machines used in weapons manufacturing are built to precise specifications, meaning replacement parts may need to be produced separately before installation can begin. This process can take weeks or months, depending on the complexity of the system and the availability of materials needed for repairs. Analysts say that even if only a few key areas were hit, the overall impact on production could still be significant if those areas were essential to the operation of the entire facility. In many cases, one damaged control room or power system can stop multiple production lines from working, forcing a shutdown until everything is restored. Iranian statements have continued to describe the strike as successful, claiming the operation caused widespread disruption across the complex rather than limited surface damage. While independent confirmation remains limited, regional monitoring networks reported signs of heavy structural impact in several parts of the site shortly after the incident. Observers tracking satellite imagery and emergency response patterns say the damage footprint appears larger than what would normally be expected from a single explosion. This has led to speculation that the strike may have involved multiple impacts or a weapon designed to produce a stronger blast effect inside industrial structures. Investigators are expected to study debris patterns and impact locations to better understand how the strike was carried out and why the damage spread as widely as reported. These findings will be important not only for assessing the current incident, but also for improving protection at other sensitive facilities in the future. When a high-value site is hit, authorities often review defensive systems across the entire network, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited again. Such reviews may include changes to surveillance, early warning technology, and physical protection around buildings considered critical to national security. Monitoring sources say increased security activity has already been observed at several locations believed to be connected to defense production or storage. Officials have not released detailed statements, but analysts say this kind of response is typical when an incident involves infrastructure linked to weapons manufacturing. Beyond the immediate damage, the strike has also drawn attention to the risks faced by large centralized facilities that handle complex and sensitive operations. Concentrating production in one location can make manufacturing more efficient, but it also means a single successful attack can interrupt a large portion of output. Because of this, some countries divide production across multiple sites, although doing so increases cost and makes coordination more difficult. Whether the targeted facility had backup capacity elsewhere remains unclear, and investigators are expected to examine how production was organized before the strike. If alternative facilities exist, recovery could be faster, but if the damaged site handled unique tasks, restoring full capability may take much longer. Analysts say the coming days will be critical as more detailed inspections reveal which systems survived, which were damaged, and which may need to be replaced completely. Until those assessments are finished, officials are likely to release only limited information, keeping details restricted while the situation remains sensitive. The lack of confirmed data has led to increased speculation, with observers trying to estimate the scale of the destruction based on early reports and monitoring activity. Despite the uncertainty, most analysts agree that the incident represents a serious event involving industrial infrastructure connected to national defense. The full consequences may not become clear immediately, especially if repairs, security reviews, and operational changes continue over the coming weeks. For now, attention remains focused on the damaged complex, where emergency teams, engineers, and investigators are still working to understand exactly what happened. As recovery work continues, sources monitoring the situation say operations at the damaged facility may remain limited for some time while engineers determine which areas can safely return to use. Large industrial complexes often depend on interconnected systems, meaning damage in one section can force shutdowns in others even if those areas were not directly hit. Because of this, the process of restarting production usually happens step by step, with each system tested carefully before the next one is brought back online. Specialists must check structural integrity, power supply, ventilation, and safety controls to make sure the environment is stable enough for workers to return. If any part of the facility fails inspection, repairs must be completed before operations can continue, which can extend recovery timelines significantly. Iranian statements have continued to describe the strike as achieving its objective, claiming the attack caused widespread disruption across what they called a critical production site. Regional monitoring sources say the scale of the reported destruction suggests the incident could affect output for an extended period, depending on how much equipment was damaged. In facilities that handle advanced manufacturing, replacing specialized machines can take longer than rebuilding the structure itself. Some equipment must be custom-produced, shipped, and installed by trained technicians, a process that cannot be rushed without risking further problems. Analysts say this is why strikes on industrial infrastructure often have effects that last far beyond the moment of impact, even when the damage appears limited at first. Beyond repairs, authorities are also expected to review security procedures to understand how the strike was able to reach such an important location. These reviews may include examining detection systems, response times, and defensive measures designed to protect high-value sites from attack. When a vulnerability is found, changes are usually made not only at the damaged facility, but across other locations with similar importance. Monitoring groups have reported increased security presence at several sensitive sites, suggesting that precautionary measures are already being put in place. Such actions are common after incidents involving strategic infrastructure, especially when the target is connected to military production or national defense. Analysts say the event also highlights the challenge of protecting large fixed facilities, which cannot be moved and must rely entirely on protective systems for security. Unlike mobile equipment, factories remain in known locations, making them potential targets during periods of heightened tension. Because of this, some experts argue that spreading production across multiple smaller sites can reduce risk, although doing so makes operations more complex and expensive. Whether future changes will be made to facility design or operational planning remains unclear, but incidents like this often lead to long-term reviews. Governments typically examine not only the damage itself, but also how infrastructure can be strengthened to reduce the impact of similar events in the future. For now, the focus remains on completing damage assessments, securing the site, and determining how quickly operations can safely resume. Officials are expected to release more information once inspections are finished, although sensitive details about defense facilities are often kept limited. Until then, analysts and monitoring groups will continue watching for signs of repair activity, equipment movement, or changes in security posture around the complex. The incident has already drawn global attention, with observers following developments closely to understand what the strike may mean for the broader situation in the region. Events involving industrial military infrastructure are often seen as significant because they can influence production, readiness, and long-term planning at the same time. Even when the full extent of the damage is not immediately known, the possibility of disruption alone can lead to adjustments across multiple parts of a defense system. As more details emerge, the focus will likely shift from the moment of the strike to the long-term effects on operations, recovery, and security planning. Large-scale facilities take time to repair, and the process of restoring full capability can continue long after the headlines fade. For now, what is clear from current reporting is that the strike has caused substantial concern, with investigations ongoing and recovery efforts still in progress. And as updates continue to emerge, observers across the region and around the world will be watching closely to see how the damage, the response, and the recovery shape the next phase of this developing situation.